All right, folks, welcome to our MPC meeting. We are live now on. All right, folks, welcome to our MPC meeting. Sorry. We are live. Yes, we are live now on YouTube. Hello,
Hi,
Q.
Jim.
Hello, Q. Hello, Jim.
Hi, everybody. I guess we'll start in about 2 minutes at 7:59.
No, with my watch is it's 1 minute.
Okay.
I started recordings because otherwise
Okay.
it's gonna be
Okay.
stop. Yeah.
So I spelled his name wrong in the first email. Thanks to those who corrected. But Daniel Wiley, W-I-L-E-Y, that took over, one of the counties in Georgia, is going to be on to do a short presentation after I do for the new people. This is a new person call. We had a number of comments last week from people who are familiar with all this stuff, and so they maybe don't want to come on this call or come on to a little bit later, because I gotta, the goal is to get all these new people understanding that there is such a thing as neighborhood precinct committeeman. And then also people are coming on, I think, to say, is this for real? Is this something that really is what they're saying it is? And I would be wondering the same stuff, So that's what we also try to do. And that's why Dan Wiley coming on last week and this week is so important, because while there is stories where the people are high-handed tactics are used to keep them out, a victory like this shows, that this is real, and that we have a chance to take back the country this way if people understand what the precinct committeeman can do. But they have to understand that too, because even the Tea Party and the Ron Paul people that took over Warren County and Boone County around here, and maybe in heaven elsewhere, they really didn't know what to do. And that's why we're going to have a face-to-face meeting for Cincinnati, people around Cincinnati, because some people have requested it. I'm going to be talking about that, what must be done if we get in, or what we must try to do, because we get in and kind of don't buck the tide on things like the secret vote count, then we'll be basically doing the same thing that the people have been doing for the last 30 years who are running these boards of elections, and running the counties. So should we, do you see if Daniel Wiley has joined? I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
No, I said yes, of course. I made the same mistake. Yes,
Okay.
Of course, he's here.
Okay, good. Thank you, Daniel, for coming on. So it's 8:02. I guess we should get started. Are you ready?
Yeah, you're ready.
Okay.
If you're ready.
Okay, and then we'll of course have discussion and questions and answers. And so this is the May 2nd, 2021 Network America, a national call, meaning anyone in the nation's invited, on the subject of neighborhood precinct committeeman. That's NPC, okay, which for short. Called different names in different states, but we got to have some terminology to start with. Most of them are called neighborhood precinct committeeman or something very similar to that. So the first thing, we want to welcome everybody that's on, and we welcome your comments and discussion after this call. This is a new person call. Anyone's welcome, and then we'll talk about getting into action after we get through the few presentations here and any questions and discussions. So we ultimately want to get into action in each state, have face-to-face meetings in each county, then overwhelm the current establishment, I would say in both parties, but starting in the Republican Party, probably, because most of the people on this we're contacting or in one way or another Trump people when he was in office. But both parties need to be taken over. Now, here's the first thing is, if someone's new, what is the precinct, the neighborhood precinct committeeman system? And it is something we have not been told about. I blame all the groups I like, what they say they stand for, the NRA, Tea Party. Some Tea Parties have tried to tell people about it, but not the nation as a whole. Ron Paul movement, Right to Life, Second Amendment movement. Across all these have millions of people, and there's only 250,000 or so precincts in the United States. And they have told you to write letters to your congressman. They have told you to visit your congressman, go to rallies and scream and go home. But they have not told you that the way you can become the party, the way you can become the Congress, is to get in the neighborhood precinct system. So before I tell you just exactly what that is, if it's one lady in one of the weeks before said, boy, I feel kind of like I should have known about this. Well, you can't feel any dumber than I did. I was an alternate delegate to the Nixon convention at 19 years old in 1972 because of certain things fell into place. They wanted some young people there. So I was working in politics from like 1970 when I was 17 till 1986 when I was 33. And I had assumed all that time that the party leaders at the county, at the state, and the national level were just picked by rich people or powerful people. I just figured, well, they're just there, Did I feel like an idiot when a fellow named Rick Herron from this area, who's still teaching people precinct, came back from a Pat Robertson gathering, the Christian Coalition, because Robertson ran for president, some of you may remember, in 88, and he was training his people how the system works. And Rick Herron came back and said, the precinct people elect the county chairman, who elect their state chairman, who elect the national chairman, who endorse all the candidates. 95% of the time, the endorsed candidates win, who decide how the vote is counted in each county. That's where they decide. That's why we got all these terrible voting systems. Nobody came with a gun. They just persuaded all 3,000 plus of our 3,141 counties to count the votes on privately owned secret computer programs and sign away the right to look at the programs. I know that sounds unbelievable, but if that was the only problem we faced, other than this push towards socialism and communism right now that's coming into the open, if that was the only problem we faced, then it would be worth running for precinct. So I learned about this at 33 years old after for 14 years thinking that rich people picked everything. And actually the rich people do kind of still pick everything because they got precinct executives who are largely county employees who can't vote against them because their jobs is in one way or another subtly or overtly on the line. So what's a precinct? We know we got one country. We know we have 50 states. We know everybody knows the county they live in. We have 3,141 counties is the number usually used. Like in Ohio, we have 88 counties. Iowa has 99 counties. Florida has 67 counties. And each of those counties are divided into very definite geographical areas around your house. It's probably 10 or 15 streets around your house in big cities, okay? And they're divided into just as definite as the state has boundaries, your precinct has boundaries. And people are vaguely aware they go somewhere to vote in their voting precinct. This is not police precincts, by the way. They're vaguely aware that all the people in their neighborhood go, like we go to the White Oak Senior Center here, and there's 5 precincts meet there and vote. So they're vaguely aware of that. But they're not aware that state law provides that all the recognized parties have the right to elect or pick a neighborhood precinct executive in their precinct. Now, in Ohio right now, the Democrats, the Republicans, and the Libertarians are recognized as parties. The Green, I think, is trying to become again. The Constitution lost their status. But we're going to focus on the Republican and Democratic Party, even though I like the Constitution Party. I think Michael P., who's going to be on the call, likes the Libertarian Party. But the Democrats and Republicans control every county, all the states and the federal government. They control everything. So until we get a majority of, let's just say, liberty-loving patriots, I'm willing to work with anybody who doesn't want to force the vaccine. If you don't want the government to someday send somebody to your house with a policeman, say, we're going to vaccinate your grandkids or your kids. What's in the vaccine? We're going to vaccinate them. If you're against that, then I want to work with you. I'd like us all to understand the Constitution. I'd like to understand it better, but I'm not wanting that as an entry level to fight. If you're against that, if you want liberty as we've kind of known it in the United States for the last 40, 50, 200 years, then I'm with you, and I hope you're with us. Okay. So we want to teach every citizen about this, not just, I'm a Pat Buchanan, Ron Paul person, like most of the stuff that Trump was saying he was trying to do. But I don't care if they're left-wing Bernie Sanders people. We want to teach every citizen this power that we all should have learned in high school in the 7th grade. So you got your neighborhood precinct. Nobody knows that hardly anybody knows that at the primary, May primary in Ohio, but primary in every state, and usually the even years, you vote for your party. You pick a Republican. If you pick a Republican or Democratic ballot, if you're a Republican, let's stick on the Republican Party for now, you might see at the end of the ballot, if anybody's running in this all-important position, 1 out of 3 positions at least are vacant in the United States, where all the power comes from. Rick Herron gave a speech, which we got up on the website, called "The Most Powerful Office in the Land," about the neighborhood if you know what it is for, and everybody was consciously knew what it was for. But 1/3 of them are vacant. But if anybody's running, it'll be at the end of your primary ballot in Ohio, as an example, after congressman, governor, coroner, dog catcher, and then at the very end you'll see something like committeeman, and nobody knows what it is. Probably, if it's not contended, if it's one person, most people leave it blank. But if somebody's running, you vote for one, or 4 people are running, and whoever wins, they're the Republican precinct executive. And that happens in May in Ohio. In Kentucky, they do it by caucus. I like the caucus better because everybody shows up at a predetermined place in the precinct, somebody's house, a school, something, and whoever shows up, they elect it right there, and they can't cheat because everybody's looking at each other. It's hard to cheat even in the computers on these races because there's so few people voting on these precinct positions. So once in Kentucky, a girl told me about 10 years ago, it snowed out. She went to the caucus place, which is at a school. She was the only one there. She voted for herself and she won. So if you're on the ballot, like in Ohio, we say, well, how do you get on the ballot for precinct? Different in every state. And I think Daniel can tell us what it is in Georgia. In Ohio, you got to get 5 signatures from your party or independents. Very easy to do. And then you're on the ballot. Okay. Then if you're unopposed, you go and vote for yourself and you win. Why do you care if you win? Why do we care who the precinct executives are? Because we are losing the country. We are losing the nation because we are not at the meeting I'm about to say. And this meeting is unknown to 95% of the people. By the way, I'm not yelling at all of you. I'm just kind of blowing off steam that we're in this position because our leaders, who I don't think were all insincere, but they were convinced, well, we don't want to hack off the Republican Party leaders, so we won't tell anybody about it, because they get really mad when they see a lot of new people coming into the system. So, but this meeting is 1 month after, usually it's different in every state, but in Ohio, it's 1 month after the May primary. So it's in June. It's by state law. It's got to be within 30 days, okay? And what happens is, all the elected of precinct executives have the right to go to that meeting in their party. So let's take the Republican Party. Most people don't go. Even when they get elected, most don't go. I'm not going to go. Maybe if somebody will bring that up in the questions and answer. But they go and they elect the party leaders for the next 2 years. In some states, it's 4 years. You elect the party leaders, the Republican Party leaders, and they run the party for the next 2 years. Everybody else pretty generally goes home and does nothing. That's where we're losing the country. Because instead of electing Ron Paul people or libertarian people or something like that, we're electing rhinos who are really, whether they know it or not, or even if they're against it in their mind, to go along and keep their career going, they kind of got to go along with all these little things that are now being used to push us towards socialism, communism, both Republican and Democratic Party. The Republicans are every bit as guilty as the Democrats in imposing this illegal secret count computerized voting system on us. So we got to get in there and change that. And if we went to those county meetings, and of course, I believe everyone should agree with me on everything, but Mayor Koch, seriously, Mayor Koch of New York years ago, who is a liberal, he said, if you agree with me on 80% of what I say, vote for me. If you agree with me on 100% of what I say, you need a psychiatrist. And usually we don't all agree with each other on everything, but I don't care what they believe. The average person would do a better job running these Democrat and Republican local parties than the people running it now. The average Bernie Sanders supporter, who I would disagree with on almost everything, would do a better job than these hacks that are in there now responding to the powerful forces of what Hannity and Trump called the deep state, okay? Or the shadow government. That's the first term Hannity ever used. So that's what that meeting, we got to get people to that meeting. And with the purpose of this call here is to tell people about this system, convince them to run, convince them this is what they need to do. Dan Schultz made a breakthrough. Dan Schultz of Arizona, the attorney. We were doing calls together on Precinct in 2007. That's where I met him. He joined our Network America call then. And I like to give credit where credit is due. Dan says, if you're not in the precinct system, you're not in politics. That's true, especially when our vote only counts, except in half of New Hampshire, our vote only counts of one of those three big companies, ES&S, Hart and Dominion, that run 3,000 counties. If they don't want your vote to count, it doesn't count. And there's no checks and balances. Except in those 5 counties in New Hampshire. So it's even more serious than the last 30 years. You're not in politics unless you're in precinct. And then we're trying to put liberty, Constitution loving, liberty people in office. So that's a basic explanation. That's where you elect the state parties, the national party leaders. That's where you that's where the candidates are endorsed at the party level. Both local congressmen and senators. 95% of the time the party endorsed candidate wins. That's where you decide how the vote is counted. The state and national leaders make the national, presidential convention and the rules for the presidential contest in each party in each state. So that's a basic understanding of it. If you Google on the internet, the most powerful office in the land by Rick Herron, and then I wrote longer articles called There Is a Plan. You can, and I hope we got those linked on Network America. If not, I'll make sure they're linked by the end of the night. But if you Google those, There Is a Plan by Jim Condit Jr., but it is that's JIMCONDIT Jr. By the way, that's who I am. Or if you Google the most powerful office in the land, Rick Herron, HERRON. Is the chat on, Q? I guess it is, and I don't have it on. I'll write these things in the chat as Daniel comes on. So graciously, he was here last week. I want to say, though, that Dan Schultz, the reason I brought him up now, he, for years, was begging Sarah Palin, you name it, Glenn Beck, bring this up. He finally made a breakthrough through his persistence. And about 3-4 months ago, I think, or 3 months ago, 2 months ago, he was on the Steve Bannon show. Stephen Bannon doesn't have an audience like Hannity or Rush, but Bannon does have a big audience. And it was the first major mic that let somebody explain precinct, and Dan Schultz explained it. That's where he kindly was sending all of us around the country's names. That's why he said, we're not ready, but we got to start this call because networkamerica.org is going to get a lot better to help people organize, okay? So Daniel Schultz made that breakthrough, and we're off and running. And if I'm not mistaken, Daniel Wiley will correct me if I'm wrong. He found out about the precinct movement from Dan Schultz, maybe watching Bannon, maybe talked to him directly. And he went ahead and somehow, I don't know how, in a few weeks, won the county. So Daniel Wiley, if you're on, I'm going to mute and let you take over for your presentation, okay?
Well, thank you kindly, Jim. And thank you again for inviting me to come. Yeah, I think that was a great summary of exactly how really important the precinct. I've got to where I call it just precinct officer, especially here in Georgia. I myself, when I first went in, I said I want to be a precinct committeeman, and everybody looked at me like I had a hole in my head. First of all, because we don't use the word committeeman, but second of all, because they saw no value in the position. And it really that really is what drove me, is that lack of value that I saw. But as Jim was stating, back in January, I started feeling this inkling of I need to do something. I'm not on any social media. I despise social media. I got off social media years ago. And so I'm not a keyboard warrior. I don't get on there and start, trying to spread the good political message on social media or anything like that. I pretty much, if I need to talk to you or get a message to you, I call you. I'm the very most old-fashioned young person you'll ever meet. But I knew I needed to get involved and do something. I just didn't know how. And so I had been watching some great quality shows. I mean, great. I loved watching Ben Shapiro. I loved watching, Michael Knowles. I enjoyed every once in a while the Steven Crowder show. These are people that brought up great things. Great things to think about, but never anything to actually do. It just gave you more stuff to be upset about. And so finally I got turned on to that crazy Steve Bannon guy, who I'd always heard he was just a nut, but I started watching him. I said, he's actually giving us stuff to do. And so at that point I started buying books. I'm just reading book after book after book. I'm just digging into stuff. And then they had Dan Schultz come on. And Dan Schultz, he got up and he started talking about the Precinct Committeeman. And I didn't really understand it at first, but I tell you, he gives you those glaring eyes right into the TV, and you're afraid to look away. And his words bear right into your soul. And those memes he comes up with. He showed that one meme where it showed a line of people waiting to go into their local GOP meeting. And we have local GOP meetings? There's a Republican Party in my county? I didn't know this. I've lived here for 30 years, no, more than 30 years. No one's ever told me, no one's invited me, no one's done anything like that. So let me figure out where. So Dan said, you need to contact your chairman, get on the website. So I got on the website. Turns out the contact information was wrong. Nobody would reply to my emails. So I said, well, there's a location where they have meetings. Turns out the location for the meeting was wrong. That's where the Democrats meet now. So the Republican Party website was sending people to the Democrat Party meeting. There was a lot of disorganization. Finally, I got a friend of mine who was able to get me a phone number of somebody to talk to get involved. And so I found out where the meeting was. I showed up. We had a state senator there talking about election integrity. And I left that meeting and I thought, I still didn't really know what I could do. I had some big ideas, but I really didn't know anything. So here in Georgia, we have every other year, we have the caucus system. So we had our precinct caucus, and I knew that's where I go to get signed up as a precinct chairman or a precinct officer of any kind. And that's what I'm going to do. So I came there ready with a speech, ready to fight to be the precinct chair of my voting precinct. And so everybody got in there, and there was a pretty large crowd. And someone had asked, what is a precinct chair? And one of the county leaders at that time said, it means nothing. It's just a title. Just put the name down. And at that point, I realized I can't just be a precinct chair. They don't see that this is the most important political office in the system. So at that point, I with some encouragement of a friend of mine, I said, okay, since I did what Dan said, I got into the rule book. So I've never read political rules before, but I dug through the Georgia Republican Party rules, and I understood how the system worked. And then I saw these people don't go by the rules. And if I hold them accountable to the rules, I can take over this whole thing in the next 30 days. And people laughed at me. I mean, I was making phone calls to the people who were going to be at the next meeting. Those were the delegates. And they were laughing at me, like, what are you doing? Calling voters? talking to the people who are going to vote, like that makes any difference at all. I actually had experienced politicians in our county just laughing right in my face for doing that work. And so when it came down to the county convention where we elected county officials, they actually threw up some parliamentary hurdles to try to actually stop any nominations from the floor, and that was overcome. And we did nominations from the floor, and I won by a majority of more than 90%. It was outrageous, and we actually flipped. There's not a single person who was on the board that is now on the board. And in fact, we had a former district chairman who was there at the meeting, and he tried to stop things. He was so flipped out. He said, I don't know if you've realized what you've done. And he couldn't finish the sentence. He's like, nothing like this has ever happened in county history. And I'm like, well, okay, well, something needed to happen. And so at that point now, so I say all that, not to say I did anything great. All I did was I read the rules. All I did was say, I want to do something that I've never done before. And now I find myself having zero political experience. I feel like I'm flying by the seat of my pants, but the fact that I've read the rules, the fact that I found a precinct chair handbook from Texas and was able to adapt it to make it the new Douglas County, Georgia precinct chair handbook. Now I'm able to hand this out to all the precinct officers that we do have. So I know that we can get them trained so that we can implement the precinct strategy. And I tell you, that was the one thing. My 2-minute stump speech was just about, I want to take power away from the county level and invest it in the precincts. I want to be the least important political person in this county. I want the precinct chairs to realize their true political power. And I want to be the chief, get me a little name badge, chief precinct officer support person. That's what I want to do, because my goal is to serve one term as the county chairman and then take the truly powerful position of a precinct chair in my voting precinct. And we're making great progress. That's exactly what we're going to do. But my entire pitch was empower the precincts, and that resonated with the people of our county, and they showed up for support. And I tell you, we've got in the little bit of time that I've had, I've been the county chairman for 2 weeks now. The little bit of time that we've had, I've got before we've even done any training, just through my pretty little stump speech, I've got precinct chairs who are canvassing neighborhoods on their own, who I'm getting text messages all the time from people who are just amazed at voters who are saying, oh my goodness, I'm so glad that I didn't know what was going on in the county. This is the first time anyone has ever come and reached out to me. And it's an invigorating experience. And so I'm so thrilled by the energy. But more than anything, all I'm here to say is don't tell yourself no. The biggest obstacle we all face when we realize there's a challenge is we are the first person to talk ourselves out of tackling a challenge, out of doing something challenging. And I don't want you to tell yourself no, and don't let anyone else tell you no, because I tell you, the precinct strategy is just like Dan says, it's 7th grade civics, but it's something that, like Jim was saying earlier, he had been in politics for many years and did not realize how politics actually worked. And this is the pure essence of how politics works. And just like I was able to come in, they thought I was crazy, but I was just following the rules. I used the true how the political system actually works against the people who thought they were going to be in power for years to come. I unseated people who had been in political power in my county for more than 4 decades. And now they're just scratching their heads trying to figure out what happened. They don't know what happened and they're mad as hornets. But I'm not going to let that stop us from moving forward. We're going to go forward. We're going to recruit precinct chairs. We're going to make sure every single position is filled. And we're going to make sure, what I'm saying, we're going to launch the biggest get out the vote effort in Douglas County history, and maybe in West Georgia history. We're going to get face-to-face contact with every single Republican voter, because that's exactly what we've got to do. Politics is local. And we've got a big challenge in Douglas County. I've got to flip. We only have we have 2 Republican elected officials on the county level. And that's the man who runs our dump and 1 county commissioner. That's it. I don't even think our dog catcher is a Republican. So we've got a lot of work to do, but I know the Democrats, they're not in power. They're not doing the precinct strategy. They're relying on T-shirts and yard signs and things like that, and mail outs. I get 15 mail outs a day from the Democrats, it seems. But we're going to have that face-to-face contact, and we're going to do great things. And I'm going to be talking to a lot of people and say, don't be afraid to do something you've never done before, because it won't take a lot of work. And that's the beautiful thing about how politics really works in America. If you go in and you say, I'm going to do something, and I'm just going to find 3 or 4 other people that are just as passionate as I am that want to do something, then you've got all the people you need right there to do something amazing in your precinct. 4 or 5 people. That's all it takes. And you'll have more. You'll have more than that. But you'll be amazed. So don't tell yourself no. That's the biggest thing I have right now. Do not tell yourself no. Get ready for a fight, because you're going to get in there. They may not want you in there as a precinct chair. They may be really comfortable with how things work right now. They don't want to see change. But be patient and be ready to get in and just follow the rules, do what they say, and take the political power. And you can do it, and you can do great things. And really, that's all I've got. Thank you so much for your time.
And Daniel, let me ask you a few quick questions about
Sure.
how many precincts are there in Douglas County, roughly?
We have a population of about 118,000, I believe. We have 25 voting precincts.
Okay, now, did you win over the people that were already in there, or did you bring new people into the system that voted? How did you win?
Jim, I'm so glad you asked that. I meant to bring this up.
Yeah.
If the system is working correctly, you should not be able to come in from the complete outside, having no political experience, and take over your county GOP in 60 days. That should be impossible. And it was only possible because there weren't people from the precinct showing up. So I essentially got all the people I needed by creating a few YouTube videos. I had to create a YouTube account to do it. Like I said, I'm not really on social media. Creating a few YouTube videos and giving them to my mother, who was a Facebook warrior, and say, Mama, will you send these out to the people you know on Facebook? And I'll text message the link to people that I know. And she got her Sunday school class out there. We got a few friends of mine out there and some friends and neighbors, and that's all it took. And also, here's something else you need to realize. If your GOP isn't being run effectively, if things aren't right there, what I found is there was a beautiful, wonderful county Republican women's club. And these people were passionate, but they would not be involved in the local GOP because they weren't doing anything. They were not politically active. And these women wanted to get something done. And so I was able to get in and speak to some of those ladies, and they showed up big time for me. And that's all it was. A few friends and family. It's a numbers game. Like Dan Schultz always says, it's a numbers game. You just got to get the numbers. And so for some people, it'll be a little more difficult than others.
Yeah. Well, that's fantastic. Now, we may have another special guest on. Thank you very much, Daniel. If you can stay around, people may have some questions for you. Michael P. is going to take over the call right now. And maybe, again, I'm not as, he knows what's going to happen next. And so Michael, take it away.
Well, thank you, Jim. And I wanted to kind of ride the mojo with Daniel, and
Sure.
it is at 8:33. So let's have a good 10-minute window here because we have Daniel on scene, and let's open it up to Q&A, and then after Daniel, we'll introduce Republican declared gubernatorial candidate Nicholas Wildstar out of California. Okay, so
Okay.
people are talking about action. Where's the action? Well, when you start having gubernatorial candidates show up on your conference call, what chicken butt? But with that being said, I'm gonna. Does anybody have any questions? Please use your chat, and Dr. Q has devised. Just put a 1. Don't worry about the code, the logic. He is the air traffic controller, and he will keep an eye on who has questions for Daniel. Okay, so just put a 1 if you got a question, because this is newcomer call. Understand the history and the mystery from Abraham Lincoln, the electoral precinct. Thank you.
So anybody got any questions or discussion with what Daniel said, or even about how this all works?
I see Lisha. Lisha, you're next. Go ahead.
Unmute. Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, Daniel, so I'm kind of in that same situation. We have a good precinct chair, so I want to go after the county chair position. He's been in there forever. In fact, I think he's done more than the 4 terms that he's legally allowed to do according to the bylaws. So I need to look into that, but unfortunately, they just voted in 2020. So he's got 2 years. So any suggestions?
I would just say that this is a crime, that we're electing our congressman every 2 years, and more states are electing the county chairman every 4 years. So our precinct, we're voting on less than our congressman because they're afraid of what is happening now, especially, and they've been afraid for years. I don't know what you can do, but build your people in all the precincts. Do you know about how many precincts are in your county, Alicia?
31.
Okay, so you need to try to get people that will run in each one of those 31, and if you need help or you could do it yourself,
That's what we're doing.
train them how to campaign on the day of the election and be there, their husband, their wife, their friend, each 4 hours, and ask every person for their vote. I've never heard of anyone that did that didn't win. Okay. But then in 2 years, which will come around faster than we think, although it's an outrage that we got to wait that long, you would be ready to become the chairman. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, we're reaching out to all the vacant chairs.
Yes.
And we're trying to find people we know in those precincts to fill those chairs. So that's what we're focusing on right now. But I love the idea of canvassing the neighborhood. I think I have a group of us that are together in our precinct. And so I think we'll adopt that next.
Excellent. And I forgot to mention that if you got educated precinct people who are willing to work, you can get out the vote on election day. I mean, we're in the dilemma that we got to vote. We can't just say we don't like the system because they're counting the votes in secret on election day and not vote. Because if it got out that all the Liberty people weren't voting, they'd say, well, no wonder you lost. So we got to vote, but we got to demand that open count before the paper ballots leave the precinct. And then we know there's a fair count. By the way, if I can interject quickly, the gentleman from Pennsylvania, his name's escaping me at the moment. I think it's Dan. I'm not sure what his name is now. He was on the call a few weeks ago. He's going to drive up to New Hampshire and interview Doug Bersall, who actually counted at one of these New Hampshire cities where they count paper ballots in public before they leave the public site. 5 counties in New Hampshire are the only place they do it right in the country. So he's going to film him in preparation for a documentary that Dr. Q and others are going to make. And we'll have Dan Schultz. We may have to have, we're going to have Daniel Wiley on this, and Alicia, someone like yourself also, who is showing the leadership and the stick-to-itiveness of what to do. So all that's in the works. Give us time, though. There was a fellow I work with in Florida, an older gentleman who was really good at and he was getting hit near the caucus that we were working on with all kinds of demands, and he had to say one call, ladies and gentlemen, this is not customer service. I'm just volunteering. So unless we can get some rich guy to get 2 or 3 full-time people for 2 years so we can spread this full-time. I don't mean me, but other people like Dan Schultz, I would like to see funded, and Michael P. and so forth. Then it's not going to always go smoothly. I made a number of mistakes this week, but please be patient with us and everybody else, because we're all just working together to try to, save our country from this weird tyranny type stuff we see happening. Sorry. Okay, go ahead. Alicia, did you have anything else?
Nope, I'm good. Thanks.
Okay, who else got a comment or discussion?
Yeah, Wallstar is next. Wallstar.
Oh,
Hello. Hi, are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, hello. I had a question for Daniel Wiley. I wanted to know, what were those rules that you actually implemented at your local precinct, or maybe just a rundown of the few? But I don't know how it works out in here in California, but if you could give a suggestion of where to start, that would be great.
Well, I'll tell you that doing the work in California is a whole lot different than doing the work in Georgia. That's one thing I've come to learn, is in California, you really are the wild, wild west when it comes to rules. Everybody's got their own rules, different rules. And I started out with the state rules. I printed them out, and be honest, I didn't understand a lot of the verbiage in there. It was very confusing. I had to read through this entire rule book multiple times before I even started to begin to comprehend it. It's like a new believer, a Christian, just starting to read the Bible, and it was like, I don't really get it. But after you read it for a little while, then it's now it's starting to make sense. Now I'm understanding them. But I started seeing how the process works. And like Jim was making reference to earlier, it's each state may do it a little differently. Each county may do it a little differently. I had to understand how the voting system worked for my county to elect the chairman. And like I said, if they were doing it right, if they had the precinct officers empowered, then that room would have been filled with people, because each precinct officer would have been coordinating with the voters in their community, and I would have had to have gotten hundreds of votes. I mean, I would have had to have worked my tail off I wouldn't have been able to individually reach out to all those people. Essentially, what I had to do, that we had 55 people that were going to be eligible to vote out of a county of 118,000 people, because nobody showed up to these GOP events. Nobody was excited. And so I had, out of those 55 people, about 6 of them were relatives, so I knew I could bank on them voting for me. I had to go and make, and I myself, I do great in a situation like this. I am very much an introverted person. I do great talking to large groups. I'm a pastor, so like you put me in, I will get a congregation energized. I mean, I will have you running the floor of the church. But when you put me one-on-one with somebody I don't know, especially over the phone, I can barely get out a sentence. And I would sit there. I would be, oh my goodness. All right, I've got to call the next delegate. And I'd dial the number and I'd stop and I'd put it down. I'd be like, okay, let me breathe. And I'd have a script of what I'd need to read. But that's all it took. It took about 8 hours of work of calling people. And I had the numbers that I needed. And that's what it is. So get into your rules. What is the process for electing the whatever position you're going for there? And just realize the process, realize what numbers you need, who do you need to reach out to, what votes do you need, and then work it. And if it's a big number, get your friends and family involved and communicate with these people over the phone, face to face. Because I guarantee you, the people, if you're running for a position and the person who's there just thinks it's theirs, they're not going to be campaigning. They're not going to be calling people. They're going to think you're a joke. They're going to laugh when you're calling and campaigning. And all the while you're doing the hard work and you're letting people know, hey, this guy's willing to change stuff. And it's easy to win them over. And so that's what I would encourage you to do. Just learn what it's going to take and then work the system.
Thank you very much.
I don't know how to.
Jim, you're mute. You forgot to unmute yourself.
Thank you. I want to say thank you to Daniel and Nick. Stay there. Durgee's on the call. I witnessed a call of the Arizona group the other night, and she's a very nice lady, and she's working with the Bitrix. So she's got some suggestions. Maybe she would come on and talk a little bit to Nick. But some of these states, they're breaking the law all the time. I think California is one of them. So the first step is to get a lot of people involved so we can start to hold them to the law. But go ahead, Hughes. Go ahead.
No, I don't see anybody else. But
Some lady was just holding their hand. Was it Barbie 68?
Yes.
Barbie, yes, you can.
Am I on?
Yes.
You are.
I had a question for Mr. Wiley. I saw him hold up a copy of the precinct captain's handbook that he had gotten from Texas, and then he rewrote it for his county. I would very much like to do that. We are here in Washington County in Arkansas. We are actively starting up a precinct strategy. My chairman just declared that I was in charge of the membership vetting committee, a new committee. We are vetting new people who come in and want to join our committee, because we are a conservative committee, but 6 years ago, liberals tried to take us over, liberal rhinos. So we have a vetting thing that we're doing. And part of my teaching and vetting, my questions, is to also teach them precinct strategy, to teach them exactly what does it mean. This isn't a social club. This isn't a service club. This is a working political candidate seeking organization. And so that's been my job. And I just thought that handbook that he showed, oh my goodness, that would be wonderful. So tell me how to get it.
And you may
So I put the link to my resources page for the county GOP website right there in the chat. It's douglascountygop.net/resources. There you'll find, I've got just the rules of the Douglas County GOP there, and then the precinct chair handbook, and then also precinct officer job positions, which is a great thing to give people.
Yes, thank you.
But Barbie,
I'm delighted for you. Thank you. I'm so excited for what you did.
I know, Barbie, you'll need one for your own county and your own state, though. You realize that?
Yes, I'll rewrite it to fit Washington County.
Yeah, make sure you see what that is. And Michael P., did you want to introduce Nick, who already spoke, Nick Wildstar, the gubernatorial candidate?
First, I put up a 1 if you're reading chat. And so I wanted to address Barbie if I could. Okay.
Yeah, sure.
Absolutely.
Okay, Barbie, you are in a fellow Constitution carry state. Okay. So what the small cell action janitor, being myself, is trying to do is that is a huge 19 state flag to rally behind. Okay. Dan Schultz is in Arizona, also a fellow Constitution carry state. So these Constitution carry states believe in liberty, believe in personal responsibility. And so with that being said, we have, or I feel as a tipping point marketing salesperson connector, we have an opportunity to really go after those folks that are really interested in liberty, and they're fired up, they're angry, they're mad about dealing with the election integrity. Okay, so as everybody has said, what Network America is about is an aggregator, just like Reddit. We compile, websites, people That's why we had Dan Schultz on. That's why we had Dorothy on. That's why we are looking to have Kimber on. That's why we have Daniel Wiley on. Okay, this is a powwow method where we bring all tribes together. Constitution first, conservatives, libertarians, and caps, people that want liberty. We don't want socialism, communism, and elitism. So I just got to make that very crystal clear. We can, we do have a written plan, and but just use your Arkansas Constitution carry, because if not, you're just missing an opportunity. So with that being said, if we don't have any other questions for our winning, Tiger Blood, Daniel, okay, and I really appreciate you coming on here tonight. Let's kick it over to Republican declared gubernatorial candidate Nicholas Wildstar. And if you could just introduce yourself and realize that we're here to workshop and get you those answers. We will not tell you to go fetch. We are here shoulder to shoulder, okay? And I think you got some support staff on this call as well. So know that if you embrace the electoral precinct strategy system, you're gonna be known in Cali. So please take the mic.
Absolutely. Well, thank you first, Michael, for inviting me. Michael is actually a staffer and advisor for my campaign for California governor. And as he said, my name again is Nicholas Wildstar. I'm a declared Republican candidate for California governor in 2022. I was the 2018 Libertarian candidate for California governor. And that's actually where I guess I would say I cut my teeth with regards to political experience, although I was involved in the 2012 presidential campaign for Dr. Ron Paul out here in California. So I was involved in his campaign pursuits for president here, and then was motivated by him to run for office myself. So I ran for governor in 2014, then as I said, ran again in 2018, where I was endorsed by the Libertarian Party and gained more political party experience. So I have extensive knowledge or experience going door to door, talking to people face to face, phone banking, cold calling, all of that good stuff. More recently, I've been involved in the petition effort to recall Gavin Newsom, the current governor. And thankfully, due to that effort, I was able to meet thousands of people face to face just by standing at a table with a sign saying recall Gavin Newsom and a petition on the table. So I was able to speak with more people, and I again was instrumental in that effort here in my county, Fresno County, where I live, and was able to gather thousands of signatures towards that effort, and we were successful. It was one of the largest volunteer efforts, petition efforts for initiative in the country. We needed to collect 1.4 million plus signatures in order to have that recall effort be valid. We collected over 2 million, and we just got word recently from the Secretary of State that over 1.6 million of those signatures are eligible. So that recall election has been triggered after this 30-day signature withdrawal period. If those signatures still stand, then we will be having a special election here in California, most likely sometime in the late fall. So I'll be, again, filing to run as a candidate for the recall election, and have lots of people that I know here in Fresno County that was involved in that recall effort, other volunteers that are looking for another way to get involved and not let this people's effort to regain control over our political system here in the state go to a waste. Because if the powers that be, the money, the controllers, if they have their way, then they'll be investing tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars into Gavin Newsom. They already have, just to start a anti-recall campaign. So he's been going around doing press conferences, talking about how this is an extremist right-wing effort, Trump supporters, and a Republican power push to overthrow the Democratic Party, which has a trifecta control over the state government. So we really do have a one-party system here in California, and have had that over the past 10 years. So the people of California are looking for something different. The one thing about the California Republican is they're not mainstream news Republicans. So although you may have a growing number of Trump supporters here in the state of California, the reason why he did not win the state of California is because of a lot of his policies, mainly having to do with fiscal responsibility. He campaigned on building a wall that Mexico would pay for. Taxpayers foot the bill for that. He campaigned on making monetary policy changes to possibly get us back on the gold standard. That hasn't happened. He made tax cuts, or actually, he removed tax cuts for the people of California as a punishment. And that didn't really go over well with the hardworking people and small business owners here in the state either. So when it comes to the California Republican, their identity is very specific. They don't really care about marijuana use. They don't really care about one's sexual orientation or what they choose to do there, just as long as government isn't involved in that choice. And of course, as taxpayers, we don't have to foot the bill for it. So I want to go out and introduce myself as that candidate that can win for the Republicans. If you look at my campaign platform on my website, wildstar2022.com, it's a pretty wide-ranged platform. So it's a cross-party platform that appeals to the left as well as the right. So for the liberals as well as the conservatives, I'm that candidate that will be able to bridge the gap. The one thing is because I'm anti-establishment, most likely I won't get support from any of the powers that be, mainly the unions and, big banks, et cetera. They won't be funding my campaign. So it's 100% grassroots. And I know that with a good ground game, I'd be able to gain more name recognition, because that's really what politics is all about. It's popularity contests. And John Cox, even though he's a very well-known millionaire, spent hundreds of millions of his own money, ended up losing against Gavin Newsom. So that's why he's still iffy about if he wants to invest that amount of money again into winning over the people of California. But you're not going to be able to do that without appealing to those people that have supported the Democrats throughout this past decade or so. So that's what I'm offering as a candidate for the Republican Party. I'm hoping to get involved here in my precinct or in my district, District 3 in Fresno. I don't know how many precincts there are. I'll definitely find out. But I know that the Republican Party here in Fresno and California in general is non-existent. They don't really have much of a presence. Like Dan said, if you ask any of the Republican voters if they've ever met a party representative, they would tell you no. So they don't even know who they are. We held events here to raise awareness about the recall. They weren't involved in that at all. It was more so being pushed by the recall organizers and independent groups, like somebody was talking about 1776 Forever Free. We Have Rights, another organization that I was affiliated with over the summer that was instrumental in getting tens of thousands of people out protesting against the lockdowns here in the state. And I was actually an organizer for one of their events and emceed, for one of the events as well. So I'm doing my best as I can to just gain more attention as a candidate. And I know that by getting involved in the precinct level, I can hopefully encourage the Republican Party to start accommodating the Calipublicans, because that is actually a large a name for the California Republicans that's becoming more aware and on social media and conservative groups, and all of the candidates that are running that are speaking about being fiscally conservative aren't really showing that by splurging campaign funds. So if we want to make sure that we're vetting our candidates properly and making sure that, we're supporting them throughout their success, especially if they're to challenge Gavin Newsom and actually give him a run for his money. If we want to win the state of California, this is the way to do it. Arnold Schwarzenegger was the last Republican that was elected here in the state of California in a recall election as well. A Democrat by the name of Gray Davis, who was the governor, he was recalled in 2003. Schwarzenegger came along, got a little bit over 40% of the vote in that special election because it's winner takes all. So you can win with 35% in the special election. He won with, like I said, a little bit over 40%. And he mainly won because of his money and his celebrity, appeal. Everybody already knew who he was. The Republican Party itself wasn't behind his candidacy, wasn't behind his campaign at all. And I don't think they ever really got on board with him at all. He more so just drove the party and ended up leaving and doing his own thing now. But he isn't really involved with the California Republican Party at all. And it's still being built up. So I have assimilated about 3 or 4 volunteers so far here in Fresno that would like to get involved with the precinct effort. And I have several other volunteers for my campaign throughout the state that would be interested in doing this as well. So the more I'm able to learn, the more I'll be able to pass on to my team, and hopefully we'll be able to drive the Republican Party here in the state to a victory. Pardon, Jim.
Jim, you're mute.
I'm sorry, I mute so I don't interrupt or cough or something. Nicholas, thank you very much. I'm not that observant, but I finally noticed Nicholas's T-shirt said "Practice Socialist Dictatorship."
Yes.
Now, listen, Nicholas, I know Michael's your contact, but we could talk. You can decide what to do yourself, of course, but I'd like to suggest that you would get a lot of gratefulness from everyone in California and more votes if you told them about the precinct and demanded an open count so that everybody at least knows what the actual vote was, especially on this Gavin Newsom thing coming up. But anyway, we'll talk about that. But thank you very much. So if Daniel's still around, people can ask Nicholas or Daniel or anyone questions or comments.
Well,
you could comment. Go ahead.
No, I just wanted to say I saw Michael.
Yeah, go ahead, Michael. Michael.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to kind of recap and reading chat. Calipublican is a thing, folks, and I believe Nicholas did a great job kind of explaining that Schwarzenegger. Some people are asking what are the credentials to run for governor for California, and Kyle Jenner has kicked her hat into it, and Ron Jeremy and the other porn star for the last go around. So yeah, folks, it's about popularity to one point, but then it's about civics. And that's why I invited Nicholas onto this call here, because just imagine, folks, if actually a representative was actually trying to help people instead of profit from them and actually do something for we the people, So I'm not trying to, pump that up more than what it is. Okay, we got to kind of cut the ego, the hubris, and the pride, and just look at good old California PIW. Put in work, okay. And with that being said, we got GOP, and then versus the reorganized GOP. And I'm looking to start with Fresno Central, get into Santa Barbara, and then go north and south. Okay. So by Nicholas introducing the electoral precinct as it's defined on Wikipedia, I recommend looking that up, and hopefully we can push the NPC. And again, state by state, it's different names, folks. But the whole thing is this is at the 300,000, 250,000 level of representation government. So with that being said, I just wanted to point out that there really are two sides to the red in California, and people need to understand that. And there was a question about credentials. There's a question about Steve Bannon, white supremacist. Well, I don't think Nicholas is a white supremacist. So, hey, let's just rock and roll and get the exposure out there. And the media is the media, and Jim is well versed with how brain conditioning, propaganda, brainwash folks. Okay, it is us. It's up to us, foot soldiers, to really break through that. And if that's uncomfortable, maybe this is not your cup of tea. But that's what we're here to do, is to break through the conditioning, propaganda, and brainwash that Department of Ed, 1979, folks, and we can work up infographics and videos on that. But with that being said, I'd still like to kind of open it up to any questions for our two guests, and then I would like to kind of go over. We do have a written plan that everybody is questioning and asking questions about. That Q has a document that I forward to him, so we can run through that. But again, it is 9:05 on the East. And does anybody have questions for Daniel or Nicholas?
Or any comments,
Any comments? Sorry,
Daniel and Nicholas could comment, or anyone could. Let me just interject real quick. The Tuesday night, there's an Ohio working meeting, because Michael has convinced me that we need to go to all working meetings need to be state by state, because the rules are different in each state. So what's the sense in throwing out generalities? So there's an Ohio working meeting. Anyone's invited to listen Tuesday night, 8 p.m. And that's at the same information, how you get on here. And we got it on the networkamerica.org menu tab that says conference calls. It tells you about that. So that's just a side note there, that's going to happen on Tuesday. Anybody else got any comments, questions, whatever? Wow, we answered everything so convincingly. Nobody has any comments or questions. It's hard to believe.
This is the last call, folks.
Please?
No, I said this is the last call.
Last call, because everybody understands it. So again, we want to start with whatever we have now. We have 471 on the Network America alert system. We want to combine with all the other websites, and on networkamerica.org, if we could, we would list a teacher and a leader, someone who could teach people, like Daniel Wiley in Georgia, and the Arizona group, Durgee and Dan Schultz in Arizona, all the groups that are willing to teach people. And we wish we had a leader for every county, as we get, by we, I mean the whole movement. And we would list that on a page on Network America, and urge that other websites copy that page, so that the powers that be can't just target one website and bring everything down. So all kind of stuff like that we're working on, and we'll let you know as things proceed. Okay. So did anyone else have any comments? I guess if we don't, then Michael, you may have some comments on the working calls, and then we'll maybe start towards a close, if because we're not trying to make these calls long for the sake of being long, right? So Michael, did you want to comment about the working call strategy and the
Yes.
small cell working so. And Michael is, let me tell you, he's making so many contacts each week. I don't know how he does it. I don't know how he does it with a full-time job and all that. So he's really trying to bring people together to work together, even if we don't agree on every last little thing. We're now to the point like the soldiers in World War I. Here was a Catholic, a Jewish guy, an atheist, or whatever, and they're all shooting because they're trying to save each other's life right then. Well, we're getting to that point now where anybody that's against tyranny should band together in the precinct movement. Go ahead, Michael.
Okay, Q, can you put up that Word document? And this will be
Yes.
real fast, folks. It's 9:08 on the East. And I just want to visually, and hopefully people are emailing into info@networkamerica.org. Get me the written plan. Get me, here's my county. Here is my precinct, or I don't know my precinct. I need help. That's what I'm here to do, folks. Okay. So if you looked at my name on this Zoom call, okay, and some other people, 21 Hampshire, West Virginia. Okay. So that is my code for my precinct. So about 46 days into this, and that is the basic research. Okay. So you need to kind of know this stuff, and I don't know where. Well, give us your phone number, as Daniel Wiley said. Phones. This is not clickety clack, as I say. I need to talk to people and get business done. Okay, so let me just race through this. But again, you'll get a copy of this. This is recorded, so watch the film, watch the tape. Okay. And we won't lose anybody behind. So what this, we'll start off with the written plan steps. This is awareness, okay? You have been brought to a national call to make you aware of the electoral precinct system, okay? And from awareness, then comes discovery. Discovery is, where is my precinct boundaries? Leisha did a great job of finding the in Texas, and I put it in the chat lines, the boundary maps. Okay, so that is the first thing in a visual environment, and visual learners know your boundaries. Okay, yes, boundaries do change, gerrymandering and so forth. So just understand that the discovery is where your precinct is, when do they vote, and who are in place now, and how many seats are vacant. By working with us direct, state by state, okay, people need to be active. They need to respond. This is not fanboy or cheerleader class anymore. We need to get into action, and that's no disrespect, but that's also a call to action. You need to know these data points in discovery. Then approach. Okay, David V out of Berks, Pennsylvania, he clashed, and he had some problems dealing with the GOP, the old guard, the rank and file, and they, I think, tried to boot him or tried to block him from the meeting. So this is one-on-one approach. How do you approach covert versus overt? We've talked about this on these kind of calls, but when we get into the state calls, power by numbers. When you have Hampshire County and then Jefferson County together. So you got to understand strength in numbers. That is what military units, you wear the same uniform and you get your ranks together. Okay, so that is approach. And then campaign. We are here to share, teach, train how to campaign, how to get your message out there, how to canvass, how to phone bank, how to poll, how to survey. Okay, then the election happens. And then either you win or you don't. So let's just take the positive side. You do win, okay? Then being a representative, not a leader, not a God king, okay? You're a representative of we the people. That's what you believe in. That's what you're here for. You are Constitution first. So with that being said, we just keep up with you. Hey, what's going on in your county? What's going on in your state? How many or how many laws have you suggested for repeal? Small government, limited government, fiscal responsibility. So these are all things that we believe in, but we're not getting the proper representation. So then that's what the precinct model is here to do, is to give us that type of representation. Okay. So please forgive me if I just race through this. Help wanted. Okay. We do have social media support. This is only a 60, 90 day commitment. Then you take a break. Okay. If anyone is like Daniel mentioned, Mama was the social media guru. She was the warrior and so forth. So, we need to know these people, and we're going with pushing civics and pushing Constitution first, because we do know how we get banned. We do have 3 video platforms: YouTube, BitChute, Rumble. So we are contingency planned on having these calls posted. So just know that we're just not following YouTube. So if you have any social media skills, Twitter and Gab, Instagram, Snapchat, 4chan, those are images, talk with us, okay? In the requirement, I don't, just two posts a week of new content, and we will help you with the content, reaction comments, post as many as you can. If you see, the right to carry and Constitution carry states, hey, did you know about Precinct? What are you doing about Precinct? That's that connection, cannabis, and so forth. What do you know about Precinct? It's time to bridge the gap. In Britain, in the tubes, mind the gap. We got to let people know that there is a relationship between single issue special interest and the precinct process. Okay. Try to grow and touch other pages. Try to keep a base of 6 pages. Mind your garden, tend your garden, take care of your backyard. What doesn't work is the helter-skelter process and getting all over the place. You got to be proficient, and you got to be communicating. You got to communicate. And that's what we're trying to do on these national calls. Drive traffic to a national call, drive traffic to a state point of contact, POC, okay, in meetings. And then we move on with mainstream media. Yes, this is harder. Press releases. Just by sending out the press releases, the established media, they know we're coming. This is the covert strategy. Civics comes first. Ask them help just with the NPC wiki page. Journalists control Wikipedia. So as our first step is going ahead and trying to get them to identify with Wikipedia. Okay. Video. People learn by video. People get excited by video. They don't get excited about reading books. They don't get excited about reading manifestos. Trust me, I know this. Okay. So it's time for you're invited. You're asked to be creative and get into video and client or supporter testimonials. Why are you behind the precinct strategy? Okay. This is your turn, and you're asked to go ahead and produce, a little snippet. TikTok, okay? In print, we're trying our best to create collateral, flyers, get to this call, get to understand the process. Podcast is less restrictive as mainstream media, so we got to get on podcast, okay, and search and share. Some people, let me just say this, I tried my best, and this is important, folks, because this is where we are as a country, okay? I tried my best to get on with a Fort Worth, Texas podcast, and they interviewed Jim, and through text only, not a phone call, text only, they just said, I don't think our audience is ready, or we didn't know how to work it in. So we take that as a challenge, or we take that as we got to get to more podcast. So right now, your representation in government, we can't dumb it down. We got to say we're smart, we're intelligent, we want better. We don't want to have the fiat dollar. We want to have things, cost what they cost versus inflation. So just understand that the podcast environment is where we're going to get the fastest in versus mainstream media. Okay, wrapping up, we have Swarm, and this is a tactic to get a response, to get answers from the media, from the party, or from electoral representatives from the public sector. The public sector has to respond to the private citizen. And I'm working on a case, in Kentucky, and Rand Paul and Thomas Macy and Mitch McConnell and Jamie Coomer about getting, answers about hemp fraud. Okay, so I've worked Swarm before, but it's time to turn Swarm onto the media and say, why aren't you covering the precinct strategy? Okay. Signs and merch. Leisha, worked up a sign, and I'm trying to get her response and support and so forth, and we got to put signs out there. On demand printing like Vistaprint is one way, campaigns. And that's what we're doing here, folks. Right now, we're in a campaign of awareness, education, information. From there, we go into discovery. You see what's written above. And I caught an email from Dirge with Precinct Committeeman project, and they're going to have a merch store to get money raised up to get the database for Republican voters and so forth. And then Nikki is working on the Network America website as an aggregate, as a collection point. Okay, please consider us mentors. Please consider us, a powwow nation, because we got to get this message out. So I really thank you for listening to me as I ran through that. Again, read the book, listen to the tape, and go from there. So I'm done. And does anybody have any questions, or are we getting ready to email in your county, your phone number, and do we have a point of contact, or would you want to be a point of contact? Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. Everyone's, of course, always invited to listen. There's no admission. But if you're the way we know that you want to work, and that means finding what precinct you're in for starters, and we'll guide it along. If you want to work, we're only going to know that by you emailing your name, your county, and your phone numbers, and of course email we would have already because you're emailing us. info@networkamerica.org is and I'll put that in the chat right now. And if you want to be on the alert list and you're not, you go to networkamerica.org and it says sign in. And when you sign in there, you automatically go on our AWeber email list. Okay. So I'm going to put the email in the chat here. Does anyone else have any? So again, if we could snap our fingers, there'd be 250,000 people in each party, normal citizens ready to get there into the precinct, get elected, go to that meeting a month or so after the precinct election, elect all good liberty-minded public party leaders. Then the party leaders would endorse people to change the Congress and get the vote back to an open count, which is paper ballots counted in the open by people before those ballots leave the public site. So all that, and we could take the country back. Now the other side would be fighting back as we did that. But the first step is to get on the playing field. And I find that when we shine the spotlight on what they're doing in the dark, they generally have to stop, because then they don't want to alert the whole country real quick of what they're doing. So does anyone else, again, well, if not, we'll start to wind down here. Anyone else have any comments before we leave?
Jim, I'm sorry. Edward actually is next.
Okay.
I don't know if he still wants to talk or not. Edward, you're next.
Okay. I'm in California, and I'm having a hard time figuring out the precinct thing. I think they're working hard to stay ahead. They've just introduced the Dominion machine voting, and they've changed the system so that elections for a primary or precinct positions are done only by the precinct in which that person lives, instead of the whole town as before. So I need help in California to try and get started, because
Okay.
I am feeling that I'm really spinning my wheels on the computer trying to do this. So if anyone can help me or refer me, I would appreciate it. And that's what I'm saying. Thank you.
Dr. Ed, could I tell you that Durgee, I don't know if you noticed the chat, but Durgee has named a few people who are in California. As she said, they have somewhat of a ground game going. I don't know if Durgee's still on or if she want to comment, but if not, we'll have to investigate that and reach out to her, because there's no sense in us rediscovering the wheel if somebody's already got it discovered. But I've heard this before, that California is not really playing above board in many ways with how their system works.
Yeah, well, that is an understatement, I think. Okay, can I save the chat by just clicking file?
I don't know. Q, does anybody know if you can save the chat?
You can copy and then paste it, but it would be available once, on the basically the recorded Zoom call. But right now, you can just copy and paste it.
Okay.
You mean if they go to the
Use your
Zoom,
mouse.
if they go to the YouTube, which we post on our
No,
network-
not YouTube. No,
Oh, where?
not on YouTube.
Oh, okay, well,
That-
can we post the Zoom thing on our website or the chat or not?
Yeah, because of the chat, I kind of hesitate that, but
Okay.
it's your call. But
Well,
right now,
could somebody click in the chat, hit Control A, which means everything will be highlighted, then copy it and then move it to a Word document?
not it doesn't work that way, unfortunately.
Okay.
But
Well, if
you
there's any
could-
way, Q, that you could save the chat, I could then email it to
yeah, that's in form of, like I said, in form of recorded meeting. It is available. However, any other way, you have to just physically use your mouse, do the,
Bottom line, if I can jump in here, is Ed, we got your back and we'll walk you through this.
Yes.
So what we're talking about is copy this, copy that. You got a small cell janitor, okay? And so we got the Fresno team, we got Dirge kicking up information, and this is the synergy. This is the collaboration, Beyonce and JC, okay? We're going to pull this all together, okay? And you're not alone, but we all need to do the work. So don't fret on comms in the chat line. Just look at week 18 as we started here tonight. Okay, Sunday night, week 18. What progress did we make over, come up week 19? Okay, so we got your back, Edward.
Doctor, I just found out actually you could do the Control A, then Control C.
Oh.
You could do that. Control A, and after that, Control C.
Okay, well, I'm going to try to do that right now. And Durgee is telling everyone there is only the assembly districtman position that you can target in California, which is more powerful than the precinct position. So we'll try. I don't totally understand that, but Durgee's obviously onto this thing, so we got to understand what's happening so everyone can understand.
35 million people, largest economy in America is California. So yeah, we'll get after this. And we got a guy running for the governorship. Okay. So, and we got Arizona that's doing a great job filling out their precincts. So, we got West Coast strength here. We need to get connected, Oregon, Washington, in Nevada, and just keep on pushing that. So again, at Network America, you're not alone. Just be present. Thank you.
Yeah. By the way, I wanted to throw in that while Michael referred to the charges that Steve Bannon, who Dan Schultz went on his show, was a white supremacist, that is a complete made up attack by the media. I have never seen anything that Bannon said or wrote that was close to anything that was in any way related to white supremacy. So if somebody knows something different, I'd be glad to hear it. But I just think that was one of the many false charges thrown up by the media. But
He's a nationalist, he's not a white supremacist.
right, a nationalist for the
Yeah,
USA
very
is a
different.
white supremacist. Yeah, yeah. So okay,
Wrap it up.
Anybody else? And then if not, I guess we'll end up because we don't want to. We're not trying to have long meetings for leading sake. Thanks for Daniel Wiley and Nicholas Wildstar for gracing our call. And Daniel, I think we're going to do a separate video just with your part to put up on our website. And if I think of any more questions, we'll call and do another Zoom just to complete out your story. But your testimony is so important. We'll break it out all on its own away from this call, as well as include it in the recording of this call. So, okay, should we say good night then, everybody?
Doctor, I just wanted to point out that I can send you the entire chat.
Okay, good.
Don't worry about it. I'm going to send you the entire chat.
Okay, and you have you have his email, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And
All right.
Roy, did you want to talk? I saw your hand.
No, I was just waving good night. Good call. Really a good call. fellas.
Okay.
Thanks so much.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. Well, thanks everybody. That's the gentleman from Florida who's working.
Yeah, right. I went to the quarterly meeting, and when I have a little bit more of a substantive presentation to give on that, I'll get a hold of you ahead of time through the website at info@networkamerica.org.
That's right. Yeah, and you can or you can email to info. The best way maybe is to email to info@networkamerica.org. And somebody that was experienced last week said, "I don't want to hear a bunch of stories." Well, no problem. They're experienced and they don't want to hear a bunch of. We want to hear the stories because this is a new person's call. I'm encouraged by you. I'm encouraged by Dan Wiley. I'm encouraged by Nicholas Wildstar trying to run for governor out there. Sounds like he's more qualified than all the other people mentioned so far.
Amen.
At any rate, so I appreciate these stories. And new people, again, are not only coming on to learn the system, they're coming on and say, is this for real? Does this really happen? Or these guys got some hidden agenda? We don't have a hidden agenda. We're just trying to get people knowing how to use the system. We all should have learned in high school, so.
Right. Agreed.
And believe me, I'm one of the meanest debaters on any subject, and I'm a pretty conservative, but you've heard me say many times, we want to teach every citizen in the United States how to be empowered with what they should already know, okay? And I, again, believe the average person doesn't want any kind of tyranny. They will not put up with some of these agendas that some of these big elitists, as Nicholas referred to, are trying to push down our throat. The average person is not going to go with that. And that's why they don't like new blood in this precinct system. So, okay, thank you so much. And thank everybody. And I guess we'll say goodnight now and try to bring more people, even if you can't make it, try to send more new people onto the call next week. And so we can help them. And we'll also put up the links to all the other groups and state groups as we get them, whether it's Network America or somebody else, because we need thousands of these county calls like this in each county to go on in the next 2 years if we're going to do this right. And I got a run-on sentence here that won't stop. So I'm just going to say thank you to everyone and good night. And hopefully we'll see most of you next week. Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Good night.
Good night.